Alright, welcome back to another Embrace Destiny video, everyone. Thank you so much for clicking that link and stopping by. Today we are looking at Gambit, with Season of the Drifter and Joker's Wild coming in just a few short weeks. I thought it'd be a good time to kind of review Gambit and how things currently look for solo players. So you've probably seen a few guides on how to play Gambit. Today we're going to look at how to play Gambit if you are running by yourself. So let's jump into it. The thing with Gambit is, as a PvE/VP experience, it's very, very difficult to cover everything that you need to do. You know, you need to be good at killing enemies, you need to be good at killing hostiles, you need to be good at invading and at banking, survivability, damage output, boss melting. There's a lot of things to consider. So today we're going to look at the Titan. First, let's look at weapons, and then we'll look at subclass loadouts. For weapons, I definitely suggest you run with a pulse rifle. Could be blast furnace, could be the bygones you can get from the drifter. Just something with a fair amount of range and a fair amount of damage. Mine's got rampage on it. The bygones you can get from the drifter's got rampage and outlaw. So this is good for two things. It's obviously good for taking out when you are invading or you're facing off against invaders. It allows you to provide some range, while at the same time allowing you to do a decent amount of damage output on the hostiles. For the secondary, for the special, now it depends on how your RNG is. My top rated weapons, I would say, would be Jotun, the loaded question, maybe Fighting Lion, but no, Jotun, loaded question, and the Ikelos shotgun. Probably a toss-up between the three of them, really depending on your playstyle. The Jotun is strong. It fires pretty hard. It leaves fire damage in its wake, and it has tracking, so you can even use it against invaders or while invading at a distance. Very strong. Loaded question is excellent because as long as you keep switching to it every now and then, your first shot will have the perk where it spreads. Where is it? Yeah, your next burst deals additional damage. It causes enemies to explode on death. So that's really great, especially if you're fighting the Fallen. They have their arc shields. And the Ikelos shotgun is extremely strong, very good for taking out adds. Basically, if you punch an ogre, you can 2 or 3 tap it with the Ikelos shotgun. It's very strong, very powerful. But if your luck isn't that good, basically you want to run with something fairly heavy here. I would suggest you can switch this up, of course, if you want to run with something like the Monarch or some other kind of more primary-like weapon here, and then a special up here. But the fact is, you want a bit of a balance of this kind of like decently ranged, slower but with damage over time, versus kind of the more powerful weapon up front. And for range, now here's the trade-off. If you can go with something like Hammerhead. Hammerhead is probably one of the best things you can do. Most of the final bosses are void. Hammerhead does work at a decent range, so it works with both invading and with primeval slaying. Personally, I'm going to go with the Crooked Fang. Linear fusion rifles are all the rage right now. Now, this may change in a couple of weeks, depending on how the changes to Gambit work out. But currently, range is very important. Usually what I do in this case is I use this for dealing with invaders or while invading. I also use this to drop the shields of the primeval envoys. And then I use something like Jotun to follow up the rest. For my pulse rifle, obviously I use it on enemies, but I also, and invading, but what I also use it for is, you know how there's usually that moment where you want to invade, so you don't want to leave the bank, but you're also kind of stuck there? Well, a pulse rifle is great for helping your allies chip down enemies and collect motes, while you stay near the portal and secure the invasion. In terms of exotics, there's way too many to go over. My go-to right now is the Heart of Inmost Light. This thing is pretty amazing. It seems like kind of a, not great, like why would I choose something like that, or Synthoceps or what have you, but this piece allows you to rotate abilities very quickly. So you see there, overflowing light. Use one ability to briefly improve your other abilities. Essentially, if you drop if you use a grenade, your melee, or your barricade as a Titan, you can for the next 10 seconds, each of your other abilities is recharging faster and is more powerful. So this is really great for when we look at subclasses. Now with subclasses, there's a lot of different options. It really depends on the team. I would say though, if you want to run solo, if you want to run by yourself, you have no idea exactly what the rest of your team is going to do, the Sunbreaker is probably the best. The reason why is I choose top tree Sunbreaker with shoulder charge, and that's pretty much the main reason. It's the hammer strike here not only damages enemies quite strongly, but it applies melting point. It applies a weakness barrier. You know this probably, where if you shoulder charge an enemy with this, they take additional damage from everyone else over time for the next few seconds. So this is great not only for a sense of mobility, but it allows you to hit medium level adds or the primeval envoys or the primeval in order for your team around you to help you melt it. Plus, the Sunbreaker hammers are pretty strong. You can wipe out adds, you can take out enemies when you're invading quite easily. So I definitely recommend that. The other two are quite strong, especially with recent patches, but I think if you're very unsure about what your allies are going to be doing, you're going to want melting point to help out. Next, for grenades, thermite grenade does the most damage, I think. It spreads over a wide area. And for your barricade, you're going to go with rally because you're going to need to reload. And you don't really need to block. I mean, just hide from the invader or go behind a rock to avoid adds. Second place, I would say, would be in the Sentinel. You can go with, there's a couple of different options. I've seen some pretty useful uses of the Ward of Dawn, but for the most part, the middle or bottom tree. Middle tree is really good if you want to have your void detonators. Where is it? Right here. Yeah, hit a target with your void ability to attach a void detonator. So essentially this makes you an ad clearing machine. You throw a grenade, you punch a single enemy, they explode, and you have void detonations going off all over the place. Which allows you to kill adds very quickly. The downside is that when you are in your super, the half of the utility of your super is using the banner shield, which is great, except if all of your allies are not hiding behind it and not shooting through it, it's kind of weak. It's not as effective as it could be. So if you're running solo again, you can't rely on your team at all, or you're not sure where they're going to be, I'd probably recommend bottom tree. It also has a shoulder charge, essentially, builds up pretty quickly if you're surrounded, and it allows for an extra shield throw in your super, which is pretty effective. So the difference in strategy here is that if you're going to go with void, then either clear adds with this tree, or try to save, use your super right at the end to take out the envoys. With this tree here, you can wipe out both envoys pretty quickly. But we're going to go in with the top tree Sunbreaker just because we don't know, and the shoulder charge is incredibly necessary. So let's go into Gambit and check it out. Now, soloing Gambit is very difficult. Not in terms of, what you need to do personally, but it's very difficult to win. And there's been a lot of people who've made some complaints about it. I've seen a lot of calls on Reddit and forums and such for there to be a tutorial for Gambit, but I don't really think that would fix the problem. I think that 99% of Gambit is explained, 95% of Gambit is explained by the Drifter. Bank those motes, enemies, hostiles in the trees. All the callouts are there. Sometimes it's a little delayed with the invader, I'll grant you that, and he doesn't technically tell you to kill the envoys first. But I think that 95% of the playtime of Gambit is well dictated by the Drifter. The last 5% really comes down to strategy. People who are aware of how primeval envoys work. People who are aware of when invasions happen. And we're going to talk about that probably here while I'm waiting for the matchmaking to work out. The other thing is that the bounties are obviously very important. Now, some of them, let's see if I have any today. Did I pick them up? Probably not. No, I didn't. That's fine. The bounties can be make or break as well. Some of them hinder you because they ask for players to use a specific type of weapon they may not be familiar with, or they ask players to... the one that's a big problem is the one that asks players to bank 5, 10, and 15 motes. Because a lot of players will run around trying to collect those 15, and they'll just keep dying, and you'll end up losing the match purely out of lost motes. I was playing with someone last night who lost 65 motes. They lost almost enough for an entire primeval. So you just got to be really careful of that. My suggestions, let's talk about that, getting 15 motes. If you want to go for 15 motes and you're not in a team, I would suggest doing it right away, right in the beginning. The stakes are lower in the beginning of a Gambit match, and if you mess up the first 15, yes, it sets you back, but I would say it's a lot better to do it than to be staking around trying to get your 15 while your team is waiting for you to bank so they can pull their primeval. So yeah, with that in mind, try to bank your 15 at first. Next, when it comes to invading, you likely know this, but one thing to be careful of is invaders currently are able to enter whenever they've banked 25 and 50 motes, and then several times during the primeval phase. So you got to pay attention to that scoreboard, the difference between the solid blue and red and the gray bar, right? So the enemy team, they have a red bar, which is how many they've banked, and they have a gray, which is how many they've picked up. If the red gets close, or the gray is overlapping 25 or 50 motes, a third or 2/3 of the way through, then they're going to invade very quickly.
All right,
so,
all right,
we'll get into that in a minute.
Let's see what we've got. Fallen
What do we
on the
got?
horizon.
Fallen. All right. Another thing to consider here in Gambit is the flow of combat. I don't think a lot of players really feel or recognize this, but once you play enough Gambit, you kind of understand the timing and the flow of it. And I see it almost like parkour. So you'll notice here when I run through that basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to run in, I'm going to shoulder charge, I'm going to get the heck out of there, and I'm going to rinse and repeat. Hold on. What I'm doing here, okay, my team's coming to help. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to get the first 5 motes. Because if you bank 5 motes, the enemy team has to deal with that blocker before they are able to bank.
Nice.
There we go, see? Perfect. Wait for them to pick them up. Heavy ammo's up in 10. Now we're not getting a call for the next area. I don't know why. There must be something missing. Come on, Drifter. There we go. Well, in the slums. So I picked up heavy ammo. Try to save heavy ammo for whoever's invading. If that's you, which it probably is, try to pick it up first. And again, I don't have a specific bounty. Oh, hello. I don't have a bounty that requires me to bank 15, so I'm just going for 5 motes at a time. Just trying to be the most... Ooh, hold on. Let me get some cover here. Probably a waste of Jotun, but honestly, I needed to get... Just 5 at a time, just enough to slow them down, aggravate them. Now, I could invade right now, portal's open, but they have no motes gathered, so really killing them at this point is not going to do anything. Okay, I hear the call that they're at the canal. I use the gravity cannon to launch me over. Let's move here, drop the grenade. Ah, teleported. Okay, again, going in. Okay, so allies gone to invade. That's fine. They have a couple of motes now. Use my shoulder charge. Oh, hold on. That shank hit me a little harder than I expected. There we go.
Portal's up. Go take them out.
Alright, now I've got 10. Now, there's a bit of flow here. I've got 11 motes. We're doing fairly well. Looks like they can and probably will invade soon. So, I'm playing a little bit risky here. There we go.
Hey, your team has enough to pull a primeval.
The risk was, should I stay and collect the last 15 motes? Well, the fact is, I had 11.
Kill it, and the win is
Right?
yours.
So there was really no reason not to. He's probably going to invade. Oh, he didn't. Interesting. Okay, let's shoulder charge. Ah, dang, come on. I hate that. Gotta be careful when the ads are protecting the primeval envoys. There we go, hit. Okay, nobody on my team followed my lead and shot at the envoy, but that's okay. Hammers are also good here because they expand. They, you hit once on the ground and they will... Okay, let's invade. Slow him down.
Focus your fire.
Hard to find.
Guardian down.
Ah, he didn't have motes.
That's 2.
Ooh, got him.
10 seconds and I
Nice.
pull you back. Your ally neutralized
probably-
the invader.
Oh, I missed.
Bury another. Bringing you back.
All right, fair enough. Slowed him down. We're still fighting. Let's, perfect. Ooh, okay, we're getting killed here. There we go. Oh, he's being protected?
Primeval down.
There it
Good
is.
work.
Nice. So it's all about that combat flow. You get in, you use an ability, get some motes, get out, help your allies with maybe a grenade thrown in behind, pulse rifle shot in behind them, bank your
Opposing team,
motes,
pick it up.
be aware of invading. There's a lot to go on in Gambit, and that's the thing. 95%, I believe, of how to play is built into the Drifter yelling at you. But that last 5%,
They'll be tougher.
there's a lot of little tips and tricks, I believe, if you just need to pay attention to them. So again, we're going to do the same thing. Now our shoulder charge is not up yet, so we're going to miss a couple of shots here. Let's do one of these. Oh, hold on. Why? Alright, rush in. Got 5? Excellent. Got 5. Get out of here. Shoulder charge is also good for that too. You can just run in, run out kind of thing. Drop these. First to block.
Sending small block.
20 seconds to heavy. Reload while in the air. Be careful of falling off of the pit. This is the worst map for that.
Incoming hostiles at the canal.
Alright, not much more I can do to help here. Oh sweet, I've got some heavy ammo already. That's another thing I didn't mention about armor perks, is I run with heavy ammo finder, and I find that's pretty useful at helping me... Oh, hold on. There we go. Again, I don't care about 15. Just trying to disrupt the enemy. Get past the enemies here who are slashing. Now, if you're using something like the loaded question, hold on.
Hostiles at the pit.
These guys are hitting a little harder than I expected. Oh, there. If you're using something like the loaded question, I would recommend dropping the. Oh, we don't have enough. Oh, there we go. Let's go invade.
Portals ready. Embrace the darkness. Take out those
Let's get over there.
Guardian down.
Oh, I'm not gonna make the jump.
They got
That's
you.
okay. Oh,
Bringing you back.
that's hilarious. He fired it from behind me. Okay, not the best invasion. I didn't account for the guy behind me with Nova Bomb. It happens. I'm still working on invading, actually. I'm not the best invader.
Incoming at the slopes.
I consider myself a fair PvP player, but most of invading right now is done at long range, and if it's not... I'm not really the most comfortable with long range. I play the typical run and gun Titan, you know, punching stuff all over the place. Now, let's stay around a little bit here and help out. Our allies invaded. Yeah, we can go and bank a couple and help out, but let's try to clear this out quickly.
Almost time for a primeval. Fill that bank up.
Let's get... Oh, hold on. Let's get the revive. That'll help. Let's go over here so we're out of the way of that. Avoid the exploding shanks. Let's go. There we go.
Invaders back with 2 kills. Hey, you've got enough to pull a primeval.
And look at that empowering, empowered at the bottom there. Ooh, I got 15. Now, risky to carry 15, but I was paying attention. They didn't have any, our invader was reducing their motes, and, I was pretty confident that I could get the last motes that were needed. Oh, that's a bad grenade. Okay, invaders come up. Now we gotta be careful. 3 points that they could spawn from. He's on the left. How did I know that? Well, I looked on my radar and I saw that he was going to appear there, essentially. Oh, that was a good shot, I have to say. I did not expect that. Because I had his full attention, I was hoping to just keep him distracted the whole time. So, not the best. Okay. Oh, I missed. Hold on. There we go.
You're being invaded.
Okay, likely not going to invade the same place twice. Let's take a look. Stop. Oh my god, twice in a row. Right for the video. That's unfortunate. I don't know why that shot didn't hit. Guess because I was aerial with the... That's fine. Now, I need my shoulder charge back so we can do the extra damage. Drop my barricade, which may help drop my grenade. Look at the empowerment. It's going to come back soon. Nice wall. Okay, here it comes. And there we go. So it all comes down to finding your preferred loadout. We're gonna go to orbit here and kind of do a bit of a debrief.
Since an iron lady named Aphrodite ruined.
There we go. 4 guardians defeated. Fair amount of hostiles killed and motes deposited. Not a bad run. So like I said, this is going to vary, it's going to be very different depending on if you're running a warlock, a hunter. Obviously, if you don't have certain exotics, maybe it might not be the best. I'm trying to think of some year 1 exotics that would be useful. The Doomfang pauldrons, the Synthoceps, those are very useful. Doomfangs will let you run, if you run bottom tree Sentinel, your super lasts quite a long time. You can pretty much outlast an entire wave of enemies with your single super. Synthoceps are very strong. There's some really good synergy of, using a escalation protocol shotgun, punching the enemy, being surrounded by other enemies, and just going crazy. If you run in a team, especially with a warlock using Well of Radiance, this is almost game-breaking. Now, I didn't talk too much about Striker because, frankly speaking, the Striker class is really great for taking out ads. If you run bottom tree Striker, you can pretty much wipe, again, an entire wave of ads and still have super left for a second wave, but it doesn't do a lot for the end game of Gambit. The primeval envoys void shields are very strong, and the damage over time of the electricity on the floor doesn't seem to make much of an impact. So feel free to run it. It's very good though if you run Code of the Missile while invading, because as remember, everything in invading is ranged. So the Thunder Strike or Thunder Crash is really great for getting a lot closer to the enemy and surprising the heck out of them. Catch them when they're trying to melt their primeval and you will probably get a team wipe. And that's it. Yeah, so again, try to consider the flow of combat. After you play enough Gambit, you'll get used to that flow. Run in, run out. You shouldn't really have any dead air. You shouldn't really have any slow time. If you find yourself kind of stuck, or your team's trying to get motes, or you're in the middle, something is off. Obviously, teaming up is probably the better way to go. You can get some crazy primeval melting strategies in there. You can run, you hit them with the solar charge, and then you hit them with Chaos Reach as a warlock, and it's pretty much melted in like a second and a half. We'll have to see how it's going to change in Joker's Wild and Season of the Gambit in a few weeks, but I hope you found this video useful. If you did, feel free to leave a like or subscribe or leave some comments down below on what your experience with Gambit has been like. Thank you all very much for watching, and catch me over on Twitch. My link is down below, and we'll see you all next time. Bye now.